Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good people. Justin Gates here, aka Brother Juice, with the Business Builder Podcast, and I have with me today online because he lives in South Carolina, and when I'm in North Carolina, so we couldn't meet up in person. But glad to have you here, Mr. Thomas Ivy, a CRM specialist, which, if you don't know, that means customer relationship management. But again, my question is, well, what is that? What does that mean? And so, Thomas, if you'll give us a little bit of a brief bio, and then we'll get right into the heart and soul and the meat of it.
Okay, great. My name is I'm Thomas Ivy. I own a business named Your CRM Specialist, and what we focus on is generally just small businesses, usually between 1 and 10 employees, and they under 1 million in annual revenue, and they need some way to be able to track their customers, their relationships with their customers. They need some way to be able to track their business processes and things like that. And that's what I focus on. A lot of times, they're just starting, and so they have no idea what this CRM area means. They don't really understand the benefit of how it's going to help them. And so part of my job is to really explain, how these types of products are going to really help them take their business to the next level.
Can you explain what a CRM system is and why it's essential for businesses today?
Okay. All right. Customer relationship management is a way for, like I say, businesses to track everything. Um, let me give you a couple of examples. I think that's the best way to be able to explain the benefits of a CRM. Okay, I'll give you two examples, um, two different industries. Okay, one of them is a bookkeeper. Okay, there's a bookkeeping company that I have as a client. They have three employees. Three employees. The three of them, I think they're all three partners. Okay, and so one of the main partner or the owner of the company, he was out on vacation, and so eventually, or something happened, and then that vacation was extended 1 week longer than what was expected, right? And so all his appointments with his clients to be able to do their books and their taxes, all of that stuff needed to still be done as if he had just if it's, as if he back arrived back in the country on time. And so the other partner had to find some way to be able to make all those appointments. And so what he had to do was he had to look through files, he had to look through past emails and things like that to be able to get up to speed on all of his partner's clients. And so you can see that was probably a hard situation.
Yeah, it sounds like a pain.
It was a pain, something that they remember even years later. I think this had something to do with COVID. And so what he if we're setting up a CRM system for him, and so if that ever happened again, all of those interactions with clients would be in the CRM, all the past emails, what steps were done when it comes to bookkeeping, what steps need to be done in the future. All of that stuff is going to be there for all the partners to see. So if anybody ever leaves, gets sick, anything like that happens, there's no detriment to the customer experience. That's the benefit of a CRM. Another example I have is, in which I might touch on this in the future as we go forward. But there's a med spa client that I have. I'm so excited about helping her out. It's just a one person med spa, and I didn't know what a med spa was anyway. But a med spa is that's basically a clinic that gives facials, they give Botox and Dysport and all these other type of treatments to clients, well, patients, I should say. All right. So we just kicked off a CRM for them. And now when somebody goes in to get their Botox, you know, they'll, when they get back, when they go back home, I want to say maybe a week later, they'll automatically get a text saying, how are you doing? How is your treatment going? And then later on, they'll get another text message saying It's time for your next appointment. Things like that automatically be done, and she has doesn't have to touch anything. Those are the benefits of a CRM. You have automation, and you have a central location or source of truth for all the customer data.
Yeah, it sounds that makes sense. That helps me understand it a little bit more.
Mhm.
Um, what are the most common mistakes businesses make when implementing a CRM?
Most common mistakes. Okay, so um, one of the most common mistakes they have is simply to um, not have a specialist involved and not have somebody involved that has experience and to be able to do it all on their own. Or sometimes they're a larger company, say they have more than 10 employees. A lot of times, for example, since Salesforce is involved with sales, or a lot of times they people associate CRMs with sales, they will assign those responsibilities of managing the CRM to somebody in the sales department, say a manager in the sales department or the revs op teams and things like that. And so as a result, a lot of decisions, though it might not be intentional, are designed towards sales.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
sales and customer relations management are not the same thing. And
Right.
so the
Right.
salesman may be good at sales, but he might not be good at CRM, and that I could see how that could be detrimental to your business, or at least not as effective if you had a someone who is that's what they do, right? And they understand, and
Right.
this is not sales. Sales, you already have the customer, right?
Mhm.
Sales is like I don't have you yet as a customer. I've made a sale. Now you're a customer. That's when the relationship management begins.
Right, right. Because if you're a service client, you know, you have people who are having issues and they're reporting those issues, right? A sales team is not really concerned with after the sale, they're concerned with before the sale, right? And so if they're managing the CRM, then the service side they're gonna be lacking, right? And so that's one of the reasons those are one of the main hindrances that I've seen. And then the other thing is you have in a sense, I think there's a term, it's called a lot of chefs in the kitchen, right? Yeah, it's like you have a lot of people that are going in there making changes to the CRM without much experience and without knowledge of what everybody else has done. And so you have things that are built out, fields that are there, things that are going on, and nobody really knows. And then later on, it's a bad user experience, and it's just bad all around, really.
Yeah, so it really seems like then it's the for the organizational side of it anyway, is that you're people need to be on the same page with who like this step one has been done. Now we got to do step two. Now we go to step three, and whatever that customer journey looks like in the CRM, uh, that's why it's called management because you manage how it flows. And
Hmm.
this happens first, and this happens, and this happens. And you're right. When too many people have access, and you don't have somebody who's I hate to use the word administrator right here, but somebody at least who kind of has the finger on the pulse and go, wait a second, that person's not ready for this, and this person's not ready for that, right? This person's a step one, this person's a step four, and so to have the seamless transition, you need to have a team or either one person in charge of it. And again, if you got to, if you're dealing with hundreds of clients, you probably will need a team for that. However, um, that's where the automation comes in because salespeople have funnels. This is basically an after the sale funnel for a customer journey
Hmm.
through their experience with the after the sale kind of thing.
Right. Actually it's a little bit of both. You have before the sale and after the sale, right? Like with that med spa, we have some automations to try to get new clients, and then we have other automations to be able to get them to come back in. And then with other systems, you might have other things put in place to be able to track issues going forward. So it's a mix of all of that, but all of it's in one system.
So that kind of dovetails into the next question. How can a CRM improve customer relationships and increase sales? Well, mainly by making that integration seamless and having that customer journey very smooth, I guess, without a bunch of hiccups. And so where the customer feels like, or not feels like, but they are kind of taken care of from point A all the way to point B, C, and D, and whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so that at the end of the, I'm using air quotes here, transaction, as it were, and I mean that like when the total experience of the thing, because you have your, I'm going to make a purchase. Oh, here's the lead funnel to get me to purchase. Okay, I do that. I make the purchase. I do the transaction. Then what happens afterward? And
Hmm.
oftentimes it is what happens after the sale that really cements and solidifies that customer loyalty. So I see that as one aspect,
Hmm.
but I'm sure there's more to it than that. So what else, or what other important facets of that are going to be the game changers for this?
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think you said a lot right there that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so there's one term, one way to look at it when it comes to um, making sure that you get more business from your customers, right? Is a lot of times customers they don't really seek out the same um, the same service from the same person all the time. You have to be top of mind, which is the reason why is it that we everybody knows about Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Why do we keep getting notifications or advertisements for it? Because it keeps it top of mind, right? And so when you have a CRM, you can set something up so it is that you do stay top of mind. You get an email every now and then or text every now and then, and those texts, they can do a lot of things, right? They can add value to the customer, where they say, you know, like one of the clients I work for is a plumber, right? They have a plumbing company. And a lot of people don't know if you have a tankless water heater, you have to get it serviced every now and then, get it flushed, right? A lot of people don't know that, right? So a CRM can turn around and give them emails to say, you know, these are the benefits of flushing your tankless water heater, you know, and doing that. And then when it's time or you have issues or you think about it, you're like, I need to get my water heater flushed. Who do I think about? I automatically think about that company, because I have been in their mind because of these types of things. The other reason why is, let's just use the same example of the plumbing company, right? You got the owner of the company, say he's servicing a water heater. He's up under the house in a crawl space, right? And while he's there, he gets 2 or 3 calls, right? He gets a couple of calls. He tries to write it down on his notebook. Then he gets another one. And then there's a major water leak, you know, and then he goes and fixes that leak. And then 2 hours later, is he going to remember to call that customer back? Is he going to remember to put it in his planner? Maybe not, right? But if there's a CRM, he can, it'll be on his phone in an app. He can talk to the customer, schedule an appointment, and it's never forgotten, right? So those are some of the benefits. And then if he's out of work and sick, the next plumber can easily pick it up because it's on the schedule. Those are the types of benefits. And think about it. If that plumber forgets one call, that's potentially $3,000 if it's a tankless
Yeah.
water heater,
Well,
right?
it's definitely a missed opportunity for
You
sure.
missed opportunity. You multiply that, that's money lost, and you forgot it, so you don't even know you missed that money, right? Or missed
Yeah.
that income. Yeah.
Um, the next question, I think you already answered before, so I'm going to jump down to the next one after that. How do you customize a CRM to fit specific business needs? Now, I'm thinking that, in of this example of a plumber, right? That's one service-based industry.
Hmm.
Um, let's say it's not a service-based industry. Let's say it's a transactional thing like a pet store where you're selling products. So, how would these things be different?
When you're a pet store and you're selling products, then yeah, it'll be vastly different, right? And even with a pet store, you have different. It's a different business, and so you'll have different uh, um, you have different verbiage or different terminologies that you have to use. You're talking about breeds, you're talking about sizes of dogs and things like that. You're talking about all that type of stuff. If you customize a CRM, then you can put all of that in there, to make sure that you have, say, you're talking about selling things, making sure you have dog collars for all the different sizes of dogs, right? You have, just all of that stuff can be built out where when they start using the system, it's easy to learn, right? That's
Yeah, and so
trying
I
to say.
think what you're talking about too is you're kind of dipping the toe in a little bit into advertising and marketing as well,
Hmm.
because you're communicating with your clients. I think the difference though is that here you're targeting your existing clients, I
Hmm.
guess, and maybe not only existing clients, but certainly, customer relationship management implies that you have customers, and
Hmm.
so okay, good. So I'm not totally off base with that, but it's kind of like remarketing to the people that you already have in a way, um,
Right, right.
which is it's smart because that's you get. I forget where I read it, but somewhere one of the many books that I've read. It's like it's easier to get a previous client to purchase from you again than it is to get a new client to come in the first place.
Right, that's exactly right. And then, when you have these automations built in place and everything's tracked, you know, you don't have that negative customer experience people can have afterwards, right? After the sale is done, then their price is not wrong, or the invoice they didn't get the email of the invoice, or something breaks down, and if you don't have a CRM, you don't know last time you visited them, you don't know what products you installed, and so now it's like it's kind of a disconnect there, right? And so there when you have a negative experience from a customer, then they might still use you, but they might not be too inclined to recommend you. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
get that. I get that. I've actually been in that position myself before where I was like, I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. But if
Mhm.
somebody asked me, I'll be like, no, you want to go in a different direction.
Right.
So I totally get that as a customer myself. Um,
Mhm.
so what do you think are some overlooked CRM features that businesses should be using more?
Automations. If automations is the biggest thing that people don't really use, and see, if you don't have automations, that means a CRM is mostly data entry, right? And so that's not, people don't really see they don't really grasp or understand the value if it's just data entry, right? Before they have a CRM, they're entering in data in a sheet or on a Google sheet or Excel sheet or something like that. And now they have a CRM, so they're putting it in there. And so they don't they don't really see the value, right?
Yeah, that's where I was. I was like, I had, somewhere between 3 to 500 customers or clients in my CRM at one time. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, great. I got everybody's, email address and name and phone number, but like, what do I do now? So AI is coming in and doing a lot. So how has AI changed the way that businesses are going to use and implement CRM systems?
Okay, that's a good question. The benefits of AI are huge, but there's this is just from my point of view, right? Um, for the people that I aim to serve, right? Like I say, are under 10 employees, under a million in annual revenue. So they're just getting started. They see a CRM like Salesforce. They think of the big guys, right? They think of like Coca Cola. These big, huge companies use something like Salesforce, right? And then they see AI stuff like that, and they think that is just too much. I don't need nothing that big. I'll just stay with what I'm doing, right? Um, but and so the major thing with them is just simply getting started. Just get started. Don't worry about AI and all those different things. Just get started. And then AI is something that works on the data that it's trained with, right? So once you have a CRM, you start entering data, you start putting in sales, things like that. And then you can implement AI and then you can take yourself up to the next level, right? One of the things Salesforce has is it can determine the how likely somebody is going to actually buy your product. Right. So you get a new client in, and you get a new lead or prospect, you put it in the system based on the conversations you have with them. It can actually score that lead and say, it's a good chance this person is going to actually buy your product. So that means that you need to put them as a high priority when you're talking to them. But the only way it's going to be able to tell if this potential client is a good client is by all the interactions you've had with all your other clients, right? So it's all about starting first, you
So you
know.
need the data basically. You need to have the database in order for the AI to make informed decisions, as it were.
Right,
And because
right.
that's what Meta does with their ad campaigns. That's what like all of them do. They use their AI to figure out, here's your ad spend, here's your target market, here's what you told us you wanted to do, and then it's going to make adjustments on where it wants to put things. So
Hmm.
so I mean, I exist on Instagram, but I don't really exist on Facebook. But people are telling me, "Hey, I saw your ad on Facebook," and I'm like, "Fantastic!" Well, it's because Meta's AI is like, well, people that are looking for this are also on Facebook, so it ran it on Facebook as well, and I'm like, "Yay, yay for
Hmm.
AI!" Because it makes the phone ring. And I'm like, good, that's what I want. I want people to, that's what we're here. Because we're all in business. We want to make money. We want to help people solve
Hmm.
their problems. And so
Right.
we can't do that if the phone doesn't ring. And so
So
that's
true.
one way how AI can do it. But I like your take on that it's not just, it can't do anything unless it has the data. Right. So you have
Right.
to start there because otherwise you're just, you're asking it to solve a problem and you're like, well, I don't have anything to go on.
Right, right, right. And that's actually one of the reasons that I like Salesforce is because it has all those things as available, right? So say for instance, let's just let's just say for instance, like your business, right? Doing doing podcasts, things like that. You start off, you just get Salesforce. What you can start with is one of the small business version of Salesforce, and so you get it all set up. Okay, say fast forward a couple of years, and you start to add more stuff in there. A client calls you, you know, and then automatically on your screen, all their data pops up, and you can see all your past interactions with them and things like that. You can see how likely they are to buy another product that you have. All of that stuff is all on the screen, right? But you didn't add all that until it was time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Kind of leads into this next one then. So, the best CRM for small businesses. Now, I know you're talking about Salesforce. There's other ones out there, and the one I was using was not Salesforce. It was, I can't remember off the top of my head because that's how long it's been since I've even looked at it. I'm just like, well, I put
Hmm.
all the stuff in there, and I never know what to do with it. So, are there other platforms, or are there like platforms that are free up until a certain amount of customers or a certain amount of features, and then you have to pay, or all of them you just pay right off the bat? And I would have guessed there's tiers, right? There's like, okay, small business, medium enterprise, and then this is like if you're a big commercial operation where you have like a lot of employees and departments and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Am I right about that, or is there a free one? First of all,
Yeah, there is a free one. I'm not really familiar with which one that is, but there are a lot of them out there. And the thing that I noticed is you have to sometimes their Salesforce or other ones are not a good fit depending on the industry. Okay, for example, the Met Spa that I was working with. Okay, the software that she was using to track, her services to her patients is a EMR, electronic medical record system. All right. And so when you're talking about electronic medical records, there's a lot of rules and stuff behind that. Right. And so integrations with a CRM are very restricted. In fact, the only CRM that worked with it is one that was designed by the same company that made the EMR system, right? And so, yeah, and so you didn't really have many options of which one to choose, and so that's the one we used. You take something like Salesforce or HubSpot or another popular CRM, it would not be a good fit for her because there you couldn't integrate, you couldn't pass the data from the EMR system to the CRM and back and forth. You couldn't have that two-way communication because of the limitations of medical records. And I'm sure there are other industries that are very similar, where it is that it's out of the box going to do exactly what you need. If, if that's the case, why build out something custom?
That was very informative, because I think even myself, I was using HubSpot. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
HubSpot's the one that I was using. But again, and you're talking 8, 9 years ago that I started
Mm-hmm.
doing this, but it's not HubSpot 8, 9 years ago does not have the same kind of stuff that it has today. So if you're a small business, how do what should you be looking for? We touched on that already. Here's one that I think is important too. If you're How do you ensure that the team fully adopts and effectively uses a new CRM? I think that is much more, yeah, applicable to people with teams or employees, as it were, or a lot of people, like you said, a lot of chefs in the kitchen. Everybody doesn't need to be in there like trying to enter in information and start changing stuff. Everybody doesn't need to be able to do that, because it'll be a nightmare.
Right.
At least that's the way I see it. If you got 10 employees and everybody has access to it, I don't think it's a good idea.
Right, right. I mean, if you look at it like you say you're building a house, right? A house has several trades, right? A plumber doesn't do what the electrician does, the electrician doesn't do what the carpenter does, right? So if they don't have a plan, if they don't have a set of plans to follow, how can a house be put together, right? You have to have and then that's the reason why you have general contractors and things like that to be able to negotiate what each trade needs, so you're going to have a beautiful house in the end, right? It's the same thing with the construction of a CRM. If you have everybody just turn around and doing things, how is the end result going to be usable or beautiful? It's not really possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not effective either. I mean,
Right.
it's or efficient, right? Let's
Mhm.
use the word efficient. It's inefficient. And I believe that was the kind of one of the main problems that CRMs were supposed to solve in the first place, was the how to make the customer journey efficient, whether from lead generation and snagging them in to the sales process, and then after the sale, like customer care after the sale.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's more global than I understood
Mhm.
before this conversation. So
Mhm.
again, this has been helpful for me because it helps me to kind of put in context where it is, and to also recognize too that, you know, not my wheelhouse. Like I would probably want to, you know, if it's a small number, and it's not a whole bunch of moving parts, sure, and it's a free thing and very intuitive, sure, I can see I can do that. But once it gets to a certain point, I'm like, no, I don't want to have to be doing all the stuff. You know,
Right.
bring
Right.
me in at the end where I can close. You know, um,
Let me speak a little bit more to the part you were talking about with the user adoption. Okay. All right. So let's just say you got a three-person team. Okay. But each person on this team does something specific, right? In order to have a good user adoption of, or all three of those people to be excited about the end result, what I notice is the best thing to do is to in a sense um, shadow each user and interview them in a way, right? To sit and watch them and see what they're doing every day to accomplish their job. And then after that, ask them questions to try to figure out where their pain points are, right? And then once you got that all together, as far as all the employees, then when you're designing the system, you got the whole thing in mind, right? Because what if I build it out and I never talk to the person who's the front desk receptionist, right? I never talk to them, so I don't know what our pain points are, and so the end result is she has more work to do, or it's more frustrating to her because I didn't think about her user experience. And so the best way to have good user adoption is to really understand the jobs of everybody who's included, in that business.
Right. And
Hmm.
so each point of contact has a particular role.
Hmm.
And if you're overseeing the whole thing globally, you'd want to make sure that, like you said, you understand from start to finish each one of these people who has a piece in that pie,
Hmm.
what their pain points are, so it can you flow more easily. Because
Right.
again, if the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing, like both hands got to be on the steering wheel. You know,
Right. 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 Exactly right.
we kind of touched on this, but I want to know if you want to get deeper into this. So, what role does data analytics play in CRM, and how can businesses leverage it for better decision making? Now, again, we touched on this earlier, how you collect the data, and with that data, the AI can make better decisions. And so, I think unless you want to go deeper into that, we might skip over that one and go to the next one.
Well, there's a little bit I can add to that. Okay, so there was one client I serviced, and they were a nonprofit out of San Francisco, right? And so when you're dealing with nonprofits, they have limited budgets, right? And they have um, board members, and they have volunteers to do all the manual work, right? And so one of the things I did was I set up a dashboard and reports for them. Okay. And by those dashboards and reports, they could track their volunteers, their activities, and then they can find out uh, from a big picture how many volunteers from last year came back this year, right? How many board members attended board meetings majority of the time, okay? And by understanding all that information, being able to track it, then um, they can focus their outreach, right? If they're finding out that they're not getting enough volunteers that are coming back, they can focus more on getting more volunteers, right? Or trying to figure out what's the reason why they're not coming back, you know? And so though that's how analytics and reporting and things like that really make a big difference. And I think that's one of the reasons why people fail to really see the benefits of a CRM. Because if you don't have one, how do you track your progress? You can't. You can't. You don't know if you're doing well or not. You don't know if business overall is getting you're moving forward or you're not. You just don't. Right.
Right. Yeah. And what gets measured gets managed. So,
Right. Good point.
without that, you're right. It's a huge opportunity cost, and how are you supposed to know if you're going in the right direction? What do you see, like being in the business for a while? What do you see? It's like, okay, this is a thing that's likely going to come down the pike. I mean, automation was one thing because it wasn't automated, not like it is now. Like
Mhm.
5, 10 years ago, it was not automated like it is now. So that's a big one. But outside of AI and automation, what do you think the other big changes are coming?
Only thing I can really say is mostly AI is really the biggest thing, really. Yeah. Now with yeah, that's the only thing I can really say. I mean, each one of the CRM has different pluses and minuses, but they're all going in that direction. When it comes to AI, I would say the biggest thing with it is just using caution, right? Because AI is something that's supposed to assist you in doing a good job, right? It's supposed to be a tool. But if you train it improperly or you make it live and it's not a good user experience, then you have problems. Like you're on your somebody's on their website and they're chatting with your bot. But if you hadn't trained it right, I mean, we probably already all have dealt with that frustrating situation where you're chatting with this bot on a website and it doesn't understand the simplest questions. That is so amazingly frustrating, you know. But it's because either that AI that they used was not properly trained or it just wasn't a good product, right? And so implementing AI has to be done with caution and not like you said over dependence. You know what I'm saying?
Let's talk about this. How does a well integrated CRM impact marketing efforts and customer retention? And we talked about the seamless transition, the intro pre-sale, right? So it's like you're adding advertising marketing beforehand, the point of sale, right? The transactional sale, and then the after sale care of the customer. Um, Outside of that, you know, that's kind of a global holistic approach. Um, if your CRM does that well, what else would you need it to do?
What else you needed to do, or you can use it with, is I kind of alluded towards this in a little earlier, where in the CRM world, there's something called a customer 360 view, right? And it allows the person or the employee that's working with the customer to have to be better informed, to be able to provide service quicker and more efficiently, right? And so that's where, for example, somebody calls you and they want to get a second podcast for their new promotion, right? And so they call you, you pull them up, you can see where they're located, you can see the last promotion they had, you can see the last few calls you spoke to them about, you can see where you promised them something and now they're calling back and they're asking about it, right? All of that is all on one screen, right? And so you're not having to say, "Hold on, let me look this up." You're not able to make assumptions, right? Because it's all there, you know. And so that's the another way that a CRM really helps is because you're able to bring a ton of information together to give it to people right when they need it.
What advice would you give to businesses that are hesitant about investing in a CRM? And I would just obviously now I'm just going to be like, well, just do it, because again, that's revenue loss, right? It's opportunity cost. It is not only in getting the customer initially, but the customers that you do have, you may be missing opportunities to cash in on other things with them because the data is showing you something that you should pull the trigger on. And if you don't have it in front of you, you can't do it. But outside of those examples I just pulled off the top of my head because they were like glaring, you know, what would you tell them?
Yeah. What the first thing I think about is like, okay, if you're hesitant with a CRM, usually people are hesitant because of cost, especially if they're new, right? And so I think the best example I can use of, or like at the top of my head, is really a plumber company, like the one I was telling you about. Okay, they they forget that three people call them on a water heater, right? A tankless water heater. And that water heater is, let's just, like I say, it could be about $3,000 to install. Okay. You do that three times over the course of 6 months, that's $9,000 that you've lost that you didn't even know. But on top of that, each water heater needs to be, like I say, serviced. It needs to be flushed, right? And so you that's additional money that you lost every time that they would have called, right? And then on top of that, all the referrals that they would have gotten or other plumbing issues that they could have had in the house that you would never get calls on, right? And you add that up, you're really quickly getting way past the cost of the implementation or and also the like whatever the monthly fee would be to keep the CRM, you know. And so once you add that up, it's really a no-brainer as far as why you would need to have one.
That's really good advice. That's good information there. I think we touched on this a little bit, but you can go a little bit deeper into it. If a business is struggling with its CRM adoption, what's the first step to fixing the issue? I would just say call, make a
Yeah,
call, you know.
right. Make a call and to be able to you want to find a specialist who is important and really getting a deep understanding of your pain points, right? To be able to figure out why there is an issue. Because a lot of times, what I've run into is people complain about their CRM, right? I tell people what I do, and they say, "Oh, my CRM is horrible," or they say, "Oh, we use Salesforce and we hate it." Those are the types of things I hear. But the thing is, okay, why do you hate it? You know, and maybe things can be done to maybe be able to make that experience easier for you, because it should be. But a lot of times it goes back to maybe how it was started, like who set it up. Maybe it was somebody who didn't know much, or maybe you got somebody to set it up for you who weren't really concerned about you really having a good product in the end. They were just concerned about getting paid. You know, those are the types of things you would do, and then look out and try to find out, are they really talking to my employees to find out what's going on? Because if they're not really concerned about understanding why the CRM is an issue, then they're not going to be able to give you a good solution.
Well, Thomas, that's about all I got.
Okay.
If is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to touch on, that you want those people who need to understand, or your potential customers, any message or any piece of this, it's like, oh, I wanted to talk about this, but I didn't ask it.
The main thing I really try to focus on getting people to understand is simply, when you're starting out, you're a small team, you got a lot of people wearing different hats. You got somebody, who's they're the front desk manager, but they're also the marketing person, right? And they're also the person that goes and gets the meals for the team meetings. They're doing all of these types of things, right? The business owner is also the one who's, you know, going to meetings and putting in bids and all these things. You got all these things that people are doing, all these hats that a small amount of people are using, are wearing, so to speak. Well, when you change in context like that from one responsibility to another, things are going to get dropped, right? An invoice is not going to get sent. A client is not going to get put into, um, I don't know, the database or something like that. That's the reason why a CRM is so helpful, is because it keeps human error from being such a big issue from you moving forward in your with your business.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm.
So it really comes down to, I know you probably wouldn't tell people this way, but I'll tell people this way. It's like how much work do you want to do? How many mistakes do you want to make? Right? Like, do you want to minimize that mistake, and do you want to have a more seamless process with it? Right?
Right,
Okay.
right.
No. Okay. Well, fine. Don't do it then. It's like, oh, you want the pain, right? You want to trip, you want to stumble, you want to have all
Yeah,
that pain, right? So it's like,
yeah.
or do you want to make that as smooth as possible and have less headaches and be able to get more stuff done and not drop the ball so many times? Like, which one is it? You tell me. So
Mhm,
I think now that I know it in this context, it would be, yeah, it's because again, I've known some CRM people and I've asked them, I'm like, what is it? And they haven't been able to articulate it to me. Now, granted, we've been talking for over an hour, so it's an easier thing when you have that time, but you have to spend, again, if you don't have the money, you have to spend the time, you
mhm,
know. And so I do believe, and this is B, and I am a small business owner, I'm running two podcasts and I operate a gym. So it makes so much more sense to me now about what
mhm,
it is and what it's used for and how to integrate it. And
mhm,
now when I go and talk to my other friends that own businesses, if they have questions, I'll be like, yes, I can. I'm only going to answer this one question, but I'll tell you this: find somebody that you know, like, and trust about it, and call them. You
mhm,
know, call
mhm.
them, and again, that way somebody's phone's going to ring.
Right,
So
right.
so I Thomas, I thank you, man. I appreciate your time, taking the time to do this. And like I said, it's given me like a much better understanding of what it is, what to do with it, how to use it, what to integrate, the benefits, right? and the opportunity cost of not implementing this correctly. You know what I mean? So I think that a good CRM system, now looking at it from the point I am right now, is that it would be somewhat foolish to not have one, especially when you're starting up, because
Hmm.
I really do understand now how much of a headache it can take off of you, right?
Right,
This is the
right.
big aspirin that you didn't know that you needed until you're the one doing all the stuff, entering all the data, and like, what do I do now? I was like, okay, I have to. So then when you have that second or third call, you're like, "Man, what did we talk about?" Right? Because 'Cause I've had
Hmm.
those. I'm sure any small business owner has. You're like, "Oh, man, like, what did we talk about last time?" Because and if you're talking to 50 people a week, you're not going
Right,
to be able to remember all that. You're just not. And if you are, then good for you, you know?
right, right. And the customer expects you to remember, right? He expects
Yeah.
you to remember, even though their last time they used you was 2 years ago. They expect you to remember them, right? And so,
Yep.
how do you do that? You need a system to be able to track that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what they said too. It's like, systems make success, right? I
That makes
forget
sense.
where that was, but it's like systematize and then optimize, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And again, AI is just a tool for that. So we use AI to help in that process. But if you don't know where it's going, right? You as the business owner or the CEO or the department head, you're the one steering the ship. If you don't know where it's going, then nobody knows, you
Hmm.
know. And then ultimately what happens is, you know, the the business, that part of it will suffer whatever it is, because ultimately the customer experience goes down, you know.
Hmm.
And I tell you this for sure, a client or a customer will take the time immediately to write a bad review, right?
Oh, that's so
They
true.
they will, if they have a bad experience, man, they're on Yelp, they're on Google, and they're gonna do it immediately. You might not get that good review immediately, but you'll get that bad one, like,
Mhm.
immediately for sure.
Right,
So
right,
and
right.
that would be like, that the pro and con side of it. It's like, hey, you wanna get less bad reviews, probably, systematize your CRM experience for your end client, right?
Right.
Um, well, again, yeah, that's all I got, man. I think we've covered a lot of ground,
Yeah,
and I think
yeah, I think it's pretty good.
I think you've made a lot of questions clear, not only to me but to anybody else that's going to watch this. And you know what, man, we'll be in touch. We'll be
Okay.
in touch. And with that being said, so okay, where can the people find you? So Thomas Ivy. Again,
Yeah,
what was your
your CRM specialist. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. Both
okay?
places. You can look. You can look for both things. Your CRM specialist or Thomas Ivy on either one of
Right, and
them.
obviously there's a website. And
Yeah,
uh, do you want to leave your email address here?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Thomas at yourcrms.com.
Awesome. Okay, and I'll put this all up when I edit it, so
Hmm.
it'll be there, and it'll also be in the video description at the end when I put it on YouTube.
Okay.
However, okay, so I am Brother Juice. This has been Thomas Ivy, your CRM specialist, and good luck, man. Thank you again, and we'll catch you later on the next time on the Business Builder podcast. Peace.
All right. Thank you.